So I hope my slides are visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining this brief talk. In this talk, I'll be discussing about the usage of
Sir,
two.
kindly, I apologize. I forgot to introduce you. Please give me 2 minutes quickly.
Sure.
Sorry for that interruption. I totally got carried away describing about the background of this artificial intelligence. Sorry about that. So, dear participants, I take a great pleasure in introducing our esteemed speaker today. Dr. Vignesh Ramachandran obtained his PhD in medical microbiology from University of Madras and is currently a senior lecturer in microbiology at Royal College of Medicine, Perak, Universiti, Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Previously, Sir was affiliated with Vyagi Center for AIDS Research and Education, Chennai, India, and has over 19 years of experience in research and diagnostics in the field of HIV, tuberculosis, parasitology, and HIV/TB immunology. Sir has undergone technical trainings at Emory University, Atlanta, USA, University of Western Australia, Perth, Australia, Universidad Peruana, Cayetano Heredia, Lima, Peru. Sir has presented his research findings at various international conferences and published over 60 scientific articles in PubMed indexed high impact international journals. Sir has contributed to several book chapters and also serves as editorial board member and scientific reviewer for various high impact scientific journals. With that very brief review, I apologize once again for missing this introduction and request Sir to proceed with his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the introduction. So in this today's talk, I'll be walking you through the ways of enhancing scientific writing with the help of certain tools, especially the artificial intelligence tools, which are the current trending topic nowadays. So this is going to be the basic content of my today's talk. We'll be discussing about the importance of scientific writing and publications. What are the tools we can use for literature search, tools for grammar checks, plagiarism checks, and paraphrasing tools. I will discuss more about the use of ChatGPT and also choosing the right journal. So you can see a flow here. Once we start writing, we start with the research question, then we go into a literature search, and then we start drafting. And during the drafting, we need help for grammar checking, plagiarism checking, and paraphrasing kind of tools. And then finally, we end up with choosing the right journal for submission. So with this intro to the contents, so to start with, why do we have to write and publish? So we need to like start with this introduction of scientific writing. So it can be something to do with adding something to history. You are like kind of documenting something. When only when you document, the world will believe that you have done something, and it's part of adding something to the biomedical literature. Also, it gives kind of a self satisfaction for you to see your name in a scientific article. Of course, there is peer recognition and promotions. Okay, and publish or perish is the most the dreadful phrase we hear. So of course this also drives us, and some people even go to extremes like this. Okay, so you could be a young researcher or someone with a lot of experience, but usually we will find a kind of a starting trouble. So we would feel a kind of a writer's block, or we'll know everything, we'll have a wonderful set of data, everything would be there, but we'll not be able to start. That is the main problem with scientific writing. So all we have to do is we need to plan, and we should somehow kick this uh, block, and we should start writing. The first part of scientific writing is formulating a research question. You would have some topic of interest, and of course you would have come up with an interesting research question. So once you have a research question, automatically everything will fall into place, and the next modus operandi would be looking for relevant literatures. Literature search is the most important critical step in any research. So that's the base, that's the foundation. So how do we do literature search? So, the published data is like enormous data is available. There are like 32 million citations and abstracts of biomedical literature in PubMed. Out of these, choosing the relevant and the appropriate articles is nothing short of an art. So how do we usually do a literature search is, there are like conventional methods which we usually do. We search online databases, or people from early 80s and 90s would have searched journals in libraries. We could do a snowballing, like based on the citations, we could go back and look for certain relevant literature. This is the conventional method. Once we select online articles, so what we usually do is we just collect them, we save them as PDF, and we save them in folders. That's what usually we do. And so I'm showing you a representative folder. So this was for a manuscript, and this was one of my earlier folders I had collected for my PhD. So this has about 200 files. I think 200 is less. I was not good in properly organizing my files. But the problem, as you can see here, is there are so many files, so many PDF icons you see there. But for a human brain to comprehend like what is in what article is very difficult. I used to have a paper kind of note it down, like which paper has an important information that would be useful for methodology part. Likewise, I used to have it, which was so time consuming, and it is like not practical to like process everything in our brain. So the solution would be Zotero. Okay, so Zotero is not a new tool. I think this should be like nearly 10 to 15 years old, but it is constantly evolving. So it used to be a citation manager, which was used only for bibliography. But recently, Zotero has some additional functionalities. So it can be used to collect articles. you know that is a usual feature of Zotero. So from Google Scholar or PubMed, you easily, with a single click, you collect the articles into the library of Zotero. And very importantly, it can be used to organize our research. You can use it to organize your literature search. And of course, citation is the primary feature of Zotero. So you can cite based on the journal's requirements or your thesis requirements. It has thousands of styles, so it can be used to cite. Interestingly, it can be synced across different devices. You could be having an iPad or a office computer, and you could be having a personal laptop at your home. You could sync everything so that you don't miss anything. And you can also collaborate with your other lab staff or with your other collaborators. So you can build a collaborative bibliography. And the interesting thing is, it is a free software, unlike EndNote, which could cost like about 18,000 rupees. So fortunately, it is free. It is very easy to use. It is intuitive, and the interface is very user friendly. So that is what we need. You don't have to go through a tutorial to use it. Once you start download and play around, you will easily get it. So you should go to zotero.org. That's the website. So you can easily download it. It is available for Mac as well as Windows. You should also install a connector to the web browser. It can be a Chrome or any browser for that sake. And from the browser, so that when you click PubMed or Google Scholar, easily you can choose whatever relevant articles into your own library of Zotero. So this is how a page of Zotero looks like. On the left, you see all these are the libraries. You're looking at the left column is my library. You can have several personalized folders, individual folders for your work. It can be your PhD work, or for any PhD or any scientific article. You could have several projects like this. See here, if you see, there is a folder called ChatGPT, and I have a collection of articles regarding ChatGPT. So you can see collections like this. So I go to my ChatGPT folder. There are several articles here. You click that and you can read the article. You don't have to have a separate PDF file in a folder. You can read it from within Zotero. So while reading, we have this habit of highlighting. You can do a highlight. You can insert some notes. So you can just scribble some notes and you can save it, which will be easy for you to retrieve later. So likewise, you can have a good collection of your literature in it, and it will be easy to sift through this collection. You can search based on the authors or based on the date of publication, everything. So basically, instead of putting all your PDF in one folder and getting lost, you can use Zotero to properly organize your literature. And the additional benefit is using it to cite. So the bibliography part, when you usually that comes at a later stage, but it will be very useful when you have like a huge thing like a PG or a PhD thesis that has so many references, or consider a review article which has hundreds of references. You could style them within a matter of minutes. Suppose you need to like rework on it for a submission to a different journal that has a different style. With a single click, it can be done. I remember I had instances of manually working on each and every styles and the bibliography, which can be avoided if you have Zotero. So we were talking about conventional methods of literature search, where we go into browser, you go into PubMed or Google Scholar or any other databases, and you use some keywords. Using the keywords, you pick the relevant articles. So for literature search has been made even more easier with the help of artificial intelligence. So for that, we need to use something called as Research Rabbit. So what does Research Rabbit do? So generally, when you go to Google Scholar and you do a search, let's say that you have a keyword like COVID-19. So you go to Google Scholar, type COVID-19, you will get like millions of articles. So what you will do is maybe you will add one more keyword to make it more relevant. For example, you could search like COVID-19 vaccine. So again, it will come up with so many pages of articles. So the relevance would be, the first article you see at the top would be the most relevant. So the relevance would be going lesser and lesser if you go through the page, and the second page would be even more lesser relevant likewise. So it would be in a kind of a, the relevance would be in a descending order. So that is with the conventional literature search method. So this, using Research Rabbit, it is completely like reimagining things. So I'll show you how it is done. So it is also a citation-based literature mapping tool. It is available online. The website address is researchrabbit.ai. It is easy to remember because it is an artificial intelligence tool. So they've got a domain like .ai. So what you need to do is you need to pick one particular paper or an article. They call it the seed paper. So you could have one particular paper which could be like more relevant and more similar to like what you are doing. So you just need to add that particular paper, and this rabbit will bring about all relevant papers to you based on that. I'll show you a demo. So it recommends relevant papers. As you add more relevant articles, it learns based on your behavior, and it brings in more relevant articles. So the relevancy increases over time. So they compare it with they call it Spotify of articles. Spotify is an app used to listen to music. So the what Spotify does is basically that is also artificial intelligence. So based on your listening pattern, it kind of guesses the songs you like and it adds to your playlist. Likewise, this one adds more relevant articles based on the articles you select. And it has very interesting visualizations. It has a kind of a networking visualizations. I'll show you in the demo. And as new papers come in, it keeps you updated. But it doesn't spam you, but it can give you a weekly digest. Like every weekly once, it can send you a notification email if something like a new paper has been published which is related to what you are searching. So it is like it keeps you in the loop. It's not only that you go and search, but it also adds up to your literature. So what we need to do is we need to sign up. It is absolutely free. The problem with most of AI tools is a lot of them have a free versus premium or a free trial. You need to give a credit card details, which I'm not comfortable with. So mostly I would demonstrate those which are free to use. Okay, likewise, Research Rabbit is free to use. So this is a demo. So this is researchrabbit.ai. Go to the browser. You can log in. So once you log in, so this is what the page looks like. You see a collection there. I am renaming it as demo. Now you see something called add papers. You click that and it asks us to add a paper. So I have pasted a title of one of my articles. So it immediately fetches the paper and I'm adding it to the collection. So this is the seed paper. As I had told you before, we need to add the one key paper. So as you see, that paper has been added and it shows the 1764 similar work. It shows the references 106. It shows the citations. It shows the authors of the paper and other suggested authors. When I click similar work, just see here. So as I told, it shows all these. I click similar work. See, it shows up several similar papers based on the seed paper. So this is the seed paper and you're looking at the 1764 similar paper. So you can read the abstract. If you think that is more relevant, you can add to your paper. So now I have added that paper. So likewise, you can add several papers to it. Once you add more papers, its relevance or the 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 artificial intelligence learns about your choice and the 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 specificity of its uh, further search, it becomes even more clearer. So it brings in more relevant articles. As you can see here, it shows up several titles. It shows the network. You can select the timeline based. You can look for year wise articles. And the interesting feature is you can also connect this to Zotero. So I really feel bad that we didn't have this during our times of PhD. See, just imagine you are looking for any articles in PubMed or Google Scholar. I'm sure you would have noticed several tabs that are open in your browser, because you will have to open each and every article to read it abstract to know whether it is relevant or not. So ultimately you will keep clicking open in new tab, new tab, new tab, and your computer would have slowed down and you would have had a tough time to organize everything. Now this artificial intelligence saves you time and helps you with the productivity, because it saves your job of like looking for relevant articles. It maps based on the keywords, based on the citations, everything. It brings everything. It's like a genie working for us. Okay, so if you are yet to start your literature search for your upcoming research, I would greatly recommend this Research Rabbit tool for your literature review. Okay, so we are done with the literature search and now we are going to write something. So while writing, we should be very careful with the language because we are not native speakers of English. So we have to be very careful about certain language and the grammar rules. Of course, our word processor would have some spelling and grammar checks, but still, in spite of that, it's not that good in spotting errors. Okay, so a good writing can make a bad paper seem better than it is, and a bad grammar does get in the way of an otherwise good paper. Okay, so we should keep this in mind. Okay, so just a few examples to show that how important punctuations is. So if you miss a comma, it's like let's eat grandma. Okay, so punctuation obviously saves lives. And this is a very interesting exercise. An English professor wrote the following sentence on the board: "A woman without her man is nothing." So he asked the students to punctuate it. So the boys wrote "a woman, comma, without her man, comma, is nothing." So you know that the meaning completely changes. Likewise, all the girls in the class, they wrote "a woman, without her man is nothing." Okay, so this shows the importance of punctuations. So nowadays, most journals they kind of compel the authors to send their articles for language checks, which cost as high as like the recently one of my friends had to send an accepted article had to be sent for a language check, and it costed around in Indian rupees like about 55,000 rupees. This is apart from the very hefty APC. So we can avoid that. And also nowadays the especially young people, they're they are so used to the WhatsApp and the chat lingo, so that should be avoided in a proper academic scientific writing. And also consistency of the US and UK English styling is also has to be maintained. So Grammarly is not a new AI tool. It has been like available for several years, but right now it is the number one tool. So though there are several language AI tools available, Grammarly is, since it has been available for several years, it is learning and it is constantly evolving. And the free for personal use, though it has limited features, it is still good. So it can correct your mistakes, it can suggest better styles, vocabulary. And if you can afford to, or if you can get a friend who can share his or her premium account, that is even great, because you even get plagiarism checking from Grammarly. So when you talk about plagiarism, it is very, very important. So it refers to appropriation of another person's ideas, processes, results, or words without giving appropriate credit. Okay, so the exact Oxford Dictionary definition of plagiarism is to take and use the writings of another. So from the Latin word plagiaris, it means kidnap. So these are the three interesting types of plagiarism: direct plagiarism, accidental plagiarism, self-plagiarism. So regarding this accidental plagiarism, I will show you an interesting case that happened in India. So direct plagiarism is like word for word transcription without attribution, without anything, without even quotation marks. If you copy like word by word, like you see a housefly here, we call it E copy. So that is totally unethical, academically dishonest. So I'll show you an example. This particular paper was published in 2007. This is from Egypt. You see the title. This is from India. Now you see the title. It's slightly changed. Okay, only the but word by word they had used or just copy and pasted the article content. The interesting thing is the original article, in the original paper, there is a spelling mistake called keywords, and even that spelling mistake happened in the copied version. So it is, plagiarism is not a joke. It is very, very serious. It can have very serious consequences. Students can face expulsion from university, or their dissertation could be rejected. And in case of professionals, they could even lose their job and expelled from the professional organizations. So we know who he is. So even this person, he had prepared a speech for his, when he was a presidential candidate in 1988, but it had uh, wordings from other persons like Bob Kennedy, Neil Kinnock, but they were not attributed. They were not given due credit. So he was considered as a plagiarist, and he had to be like expelled from presidential election in 1988. He had to wait for so many years then to become the president. So this is to show the impact of plagiarism. So how plagiarism gets detected is nowadays as a pre-editorial checking, or some journals even ask the authors themselves to submit the plagiarism report. Okay, so the publishers have very good softwares to check plagiarism. Especially most used one is called as the Authenticate. Okay, so if there is a like more than 15 to 20% of similarity, some journals outrightly reject the articles. So these are some of the online tools available to check plagiarism. So we are not going into all through that. Some of them are even paid ones. But here, just like how Grammarly is the best, in plagiarism checking, Turnitin is the best in the industry. But unfortunately, it is not a free tool. It is used by most academic institutions. So most academic institutions buy the license, and they share the username with their staff. It is very, though it is very good, only one issue is lack of access by all. So this one can be used for by those who don't have access to Turnitin. This QText is an online free plagiarism checker. So it has very basic kind of layout. Uh, you have to only copy and paste text. So you have to do it like paste 1,000 words first, and then because it accepts only 1,000 words at a time for free. It's good, not as good as Turnitin, but functional. So if you want to do a quick plagiarism check, you can go to this qtext.com. The other good one, based on my checking several online tools, is this prepostseo.com. So this one has you can check like about 1,500 words. It can even generate a report in PDF format, just like Turnitin. Only one catch here is it displays ads. If you can bear with the advertisements, then you can use this particular online tool. So I was telling about an interesting case. So this is the very distinguished professor of chemistry, Professor CNR Rao. So he is the most cited person in India. You can see his H index is 154. Okay, so such a respected person. So he got into a plagiarism row, which was actually not his fault. So one of his PhD students had written a paper, and what they have done is, in the introduction, there were like just 3 sentences which were not credited. No attribution was there, but it was like word by word, it was the same. So this PhD student, he had thought of changing those sentences later, but obviously he had forgotten it. It was submitted, it got published, and later they found out that those 3 sentences were completely plagiarized. So so this person, he got into trouble, and he had uh, applied for withdrawal of the article, but the journal didn't want to withdraw the article. But it for all wrong reasons, it came in the media. So what I would like to tell is, even if it is an unintentional plagiarism, it can have severe impacts. So obviously we have to give credit to the original author. So what this PhD student should have done is, he should have paraphrased, and of course he should have given credits. So avoiding plagiarism, can do some paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is nothing but we have to restate using our own words. Okay, so the meaning of the original text has to be intact, but we are not copying word by word. But no matter how successful we are at paraphrasing, only the words are our own, but the ideas and everything is the author. So the credit has to be given. So we can use synonyms for other words. You have to change the structure of sentence, or changing the voice, or change parts of speech. All these strategies could be used to paraphrase a sentence. Okay, so all these days we were doing manually paraphrasing using all these strategies. So we have an AI tool called Quillbot. So Quillbot is a, actually it was first only a paraphraser. Now it comes with additional features. Of course, it is free for some limited options, limited text. So 125 words can be used. It has limited functionality for a free account, but still it is very good in paraphrasing. I still wouldn't support using Quillbot all the time, but when in cases when you are stuck, when you are not able to paraphrase more efficiently, or you think that the idea is not very clearly mentioned, or your rephrased sentence is not that good, then you can just give a try with the Quillbot. Okay, so I'm showing this Siri from Apple, Alexa from Amazon, and Google Assistant, just to show that artificial intelligence is not new to us. So we are having artificial intelligence right in our pockets. So all our mobile phones have artificial intelligence. So when we type, this autocorrect comes into play, and it most of the time messes with our communication. Autocorrect is this predictive text is artificial intelligence. So you when you are free, you just go through your Instagram reels. So the algorithm decides what you like, and it shows relevant or which one you like. That is artificial intelligence. And these Siri, Alexa, and Google Assistants are all artificial intelligence. So we have these for the like more than a decade. Artificial intelligence is quite there. But why suddenly there is a lot of interest about ChatGPT? Even chatbots are not new. Even you go to any bank website, you will have uh, chatbots. Instead of chatting with the real human, initially you will have support from the chatbots, which you would have noticed if you had chatted that they are so dumb. That is how ChatGPT stands apart from other AI tools. So it stands for Chat Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So it is interesting to note that within 2 months after its launch, it hit the 100 million user mark. You can see the comparative other apps, how long did they take to reach this 100 million mark. And it is so famous that it featured on the cover of Time magazine. So which is not an easy feat, I would say. So these, what can a chat GPT do? So what are its capabilities? So it is almost, I would say, you can have a human like conversation with it. It is even more predictive. You can chat with it, you can ask questions, you can ask it to write a poem, or you can ask it to write an essay, you can ask it to do some creative stuff. So my kids usually enjoy playing with chat GPT. So they ask for alternative ending for a Little Red Riding Hood. So it gives very beautiful, interesting, creative stories. So these are some of the capabilities. I'm telling in a very basic level, but it can write codes, which can be useful for software professionals. It can write music. It can write essays. The very important thing is it can even understand the tone of sentences. Uh, it can sense the mood, whether it is written in a angry tone or is it in a very formal tone. So you can ask it to prepare a personal statement. You are applying for a scholarship or something, you can just ask it to prepare a statement, or you can ask it, you can have some preparation for interview questions. Likewise, the list goes on. So we will see like how ChatGPT can be used in scientific writing. So how do you, for people who have not used ChatGPT yet, those uninitiated, it can be accessed by uh, typing chat.openai.com in any browser. So you have to go and sign up, and immediately you can start using it. Or you can use a Microsoft's Bing feature. If you use uh, but for this you need to use the Microsoft's the new browser. It will not work on Chrome or Chrome or other browsers like Mozilla Firefox, but you have to use the Microsoft browser, and you can use the chat function there. You might be wondering why I'm showing this picture. So this was in 1994. So Bill Gates did this, I would call this publicity stunt, to show that a CD he is holding can hold information as large as the paper stacked below him. So a CD is just 700 megabytes. Okay. So in 2023, this was recreated. So this person is holding a 1 TB memory card. Okay. So this is 1 TB memory card. So when it is tagged, it refers that about 470 million papers of data can be stored in it. If it is tagged, it goes to a height of 26 kilometers. Now do a math, multiply this with 45. So 45 terabytes of data. So that would mean 21,150 million sheets of papers. So if they are stacked, that would be a height of 1,170 kilometers. Why I am mentioning 45 terabytes of data is that is what have been given for ChatGPT's training. You can imagine the Chitty, the robot, scanning the books and reading immediately. Likewise, all data from the web, certain ebooks, Wikipedia. So such all text data, about 45 terabytes. Just imagine, see 45 terabytes of data, text data is enormous, and ChatGPT has been trained on that. So based on that, it is able to, it has become like, based on those learning, it has become so intelligent, and that is why it is able to converse with us in a more humanized tone. So what can we do? How can we use ChatGPT for scientific writing? We can use it to generate content. Okay, I'm not supporting this, I'm just listing it. It can be used to draft articles. It can be used for summarization. You can feed in a lengthy scientific article and ask it to summarize in 4 lines. You can ask it to translate scientific text. Suppose you get an interesting article, but it is in Korean language. ChatGPT can translate it for you. It can help in paraphrasing. It can retrieve information for your research. Instead of relying on Google, you can ask ChatGPT for it. It can even help you with data analysis. Okay, it can even suggest you certain statistical methods. Again, you have to be very careful when you get help from ChatGPT for data analysis. I will tell you why later. It can also help you with the editing and proofreading. It can help you with your grammar, punctuations, and words usage. So these are some of the capabilities. And in January, this ChatGPT was launched in end of November. By January, there were several publications that had ChatGPT as one of the authors. So it was it was the trend that time, because most of the content was generated by ChatGPT, and these authors, they felt obliged to ChatGPT to include it as one of the co-authors. So the publication houses like Science and Nature, they came up with certain ground rules. So they said ChatGPT is fun, but you cannot add it as an author. So they were very clear. Nature had very clear ground rules. So it cannot be accepted as a credited author. And they mentioned that the researchers using these tools, they can of course use it, but in the methods and or in the acknowledgement section, they have to uh, kind of they have to mention that it has been used, because it cannot be used as an author, but it has to be mentioned that this data was generated using AI. So these are some of the ground rules from Elsevier publishers. So they say that it can be used to improve the language or for the readability, but it should not replace the researcher as such. The analysis, the scientific insights, data interpretation, or coming at conclusions have to be done by the humans. So the authors have to be very careful not to totally rely on the ChatGPT's outcome, the results. So they have to be very careful and they have to be very judicious, and also they should disclose in the manuscripts of use of AI. So this is from Elsevier. So what can we do? So how can we efficiently use AI tools like ChatGPT, but still in a more ethical manner? So these are some of the points I would say that would be useful for researchers. So you could get the structure or the skeleton of your paper. So as I said before, we always could get stuck up while we start. So we would have everything in our mind, but we would have kind of a starting problem. So it would be good if someone gives us the subheading so that we can go and write. Sometimes it would be the supervisor who usually gives an idea or an outline. So you can use ChatGPT to get a structure. So we'll see a demo. So I asked outline for a review article on antimicrobial resistance. So if you're going to write a review article, you can ask for an outline. See it beautifully, instantly it gives out the subheadings. Right from introduction to references, it gives several subheadings and it gives a complete outline. So we need not go 100% with this, but it kinds of breaks the writer's block. You have something to start with, you have something to play around, so it can form a foundation or it can spark some ideas with you, so you can start writing. So it can get you help a structure of a paper or a study. Suggestions for title. So you have written a wonderful paper, but your title is not that catchy. So usually the PhD supervisors would ask us to rewrite the title so that it is more relevant, more catchy. Usually it would like go for alternative titles, like about 5 to 6 titles would have been like rejected, and we come up with alternative titles. So when you are stuck with such titles, you can always seek the help of ChatGPT. I'll show you a demo here. So I asked ChatGPT to suggest 10 alternative titles for a opinion article. So if I'm writing an opinion article about the use of AIs for scientific writing, so you also have to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of using artificial intelligence. So what could be the titles? So this is what I asked, and with a single click, it came up with 10 titles. So as you see here, so it plays around with the words. See, basically it is a language model. So being a language model, it is very good in its language. So the certain usage of words would be very good. But here I didn't like all the 10. So what I did was I clicked regenerate response. So now it came up with other 10 alternate titles. So likewise, you can make it work. You can ask it to regenerate again and again and again. So it would come up with more and more alternative titles, which can be used by us. Suggestions for subheading. So not only the title for the whole article, sometimes we would be looking for catchy titles for subheading. So to do that, what I did was I picked a published article. This is an interesting article. What they had done is they had assessed the performance of ChatGPT on USMLE, the medical licensing exam. So ChatGPT had taken this exam and it had passed USMLE. So I picked two paragraphs from this article and I asked ChatGPT to give a title for it. See, the title in the published paper is Potential for AI Assisted Human Learning in Medical Education. Okay, so now we know what is it about, but without telling the title, I copied the text and asked ChatGPT to give a subheading for this. So assessing the ability of ChatGPT to enhance human learning in medicine. Assessing the concordance and insight of ChatGPT, assessing the effectiveness of ChatGPT, assessing the ability of ChatGPT to assist in human learning insights and implications for medical education. So, so for such suggestions for titles and subheading, I would say that we can go ahead and use ChatGPT. The next thing is conclusion. So sometimes we would write very nice papers, but uh, the ending part would be a bit tough. Like we would be confused on how to conclude this, on what note should we conclude this. So for that, we can get suggestions from ChatGPT on like how to conclude this. So what I did was one of my earlier published paper, I copied the text without the last conclusion paragraph. This is about the predatory journals. So what I did was I copied the paragraph except the conclusion, and I asked ChatGPT to write a conclusion for this. So as I told you, this is about predatory journals. So this conclusion by ChatGPT is very based on what text was fed into it. So it has come up with a very logical and very relevant finishing. So again, I'm telling you this, we cannot just copy this conclusion and use this. This is to give an idea that a conclusion can be could be written like this. So in our own words, we can use the ideas and we could come up with similar conclusions. The fourth interesting thing is counter argument, or a second set of eyes. So when you write something, usually the most advised thing is you should always show it to a second set of eyes. It can be your supervisor or it could be your peers. So only when someone else reads your paper, they would find they could spot certain errors or any logical mistakes or any scientific flaws. So for such things, you can ask the help of ChatGPT. You can use it as a kind of a reviewer. So when you submit it to a journal, a reviewer, what he does is basically he is doing this, right? He is going through your paper and gives a feedback. So before submission, you can just do a pre-review using ChatGPT. Okay, so again, I took the same paper So I took the abstract from the paper, which I had mentioned earlier, performance of ChatGPT and USMLE. Okay, so what I did was I fed it into ChatGPT and asked it to write a counter argument. Write a counter argument for the following text, and I pasted the abstract of the published article. Okay, so if you see here, it very logically it counter argues with that. So the claim is that it is very good, it can be used for certain clinical decision making and other stuff because it has cleared USMLE. They say that it is very good, it is very knowledgeable likewise. So here it argues with me saying that passing with the threshold of 60% may not be sufficient to rely on ChatGPT for clinical decision making. So it says that the study did not compare ChatGPT's performance to that of human experts. So it even finds faults with the study's methodology. So it says that it has to be approached with caution because there is a risk of biases and inaccuracies in the medical knowledge of ChatGPT. It also warns us about the errors in decision making which could harm the patient. So likewise, when we have someone to spot errors and do a review, it will be very useful. So instead of looking for peers to go through your paper, you can do get a feedback from ChatGPT within seconds. Okay, so we saw how we can ethically use ChatGPT. Now let us have a look at the uglier side of ChatGPT. Integrity and ethics. Usually the content generated by ChatGPT, since it is very dynamic, every time you press generate, regenerate, it gives out new non-repetitive text. So they are usually not spotted by Turnitin as plagiarism. But to be honest, if we copy and paste from ChatGPT, it is plagiarism, right? So there is an issue of integrity and ethics when we use AI tools. So we have to be more cautious on the usage. Very importantly, it should not be used for literature search. The reason being, if you ask literature search or if you ask ChatGPT to give out citations, it makes up citations. It gives out fake citations. It gives very uh, original looking kind of citations. It would give author names with the title, with the name of the journal, even it gives DOI. But if you do a search, you will find that such an article does not exist. I don't know why, but ChatGPT does this all the time. It gives out fake citations. So if you do a literature search using ChatGPT, you would be caught. So never use it for literature search. And when you ask it suggestions for statistical methods, sometimes it gives out inaccurate suggestions. So when you find that it is inaccurate and when you ask it, are you sure? Can we do this kind of statistical method? Suddenly it apologizes and says, yes, you're right. Thanks for telling me this. Yes, I was wrong. So you have to do this statistical method. So if it is like that, just imagine what would be the outcome if you follow it blindly. You should know that it is updated only until 2021. Its resources are not updated. So it is kind of, its knowledge is outdated. So if you are doing research on something very recent, you might not get very updated results from ChatGPT. I personally think that it affects critical thinking. There is something called as Google effect or digital amnesia. So the very good example for this is when we didn't have mobile phones, when we had only landline phones, we memorized the phone numbers of all our friends and families. I personally knew like about 100 phone numbers along with the STD codes. But now I don't even know my family members' phone numbers because everything is stored in our phone. We just click and we call them. So this is something, the capability of our brain is underutilized because we use the devices as the extension of our brain. So when someone relies on AI all the time, their brain will become underutilized, and because we kind of over rely on AI. So it should be avoided, not only for scientific writing. Even more important is children should not be allowed to use ChatGPT because their growth, their learning, and their critical thinking would be, their even creative thinking would be very much affected when ChatGPT is used. So, I would suggest 3 commandments for researchers using AI tools. So, this is going to be the take home message for those who are attending this session. Thou shall not outsource your thinking to AI. So your thinking, always use your brain. Don't outsource your thinking to artificial intelligence. Some minor task you can outsource to AI. Thou shall use AI as your research assistant, not your supervisor. Okay, you can use it as your research assistant. Get some minor things done. Don't think as it as your supervisor. Thou shall not use AI to create content. So don't use it to create content. Maybe you can use it to create some structures or skeleton. Don't rely on it to complete creation of contents. This is the take home message for researchers to use AI tools. Okay, so you have something, you have your article draft ready. Now, choosing the right scientific journal for your paper is the next important thing. Of course, you have several factors. You have to think about the article publication charges and stuff. But to help with this, there is a tool called as Jane, Journal Author Name Estimator. This is very interesting because I have given the website address here, jane.biosemantics.org. So you just go there. You have to just paste your title or abstract. So you see here, I'm pasting an abstract of one of my published articles. Click Find Journals. It gives out a list of journals that would be more appropriate for publishing this particular article. There are several other tools like Jane, but I feel that Jane would be like more important because it gets the information from PubMed. So its source is from PubMed, but there is a downside of using PubMed because there are several predatory journals that have found their way into PubMed. So you have to be very careful. So even they themselves have mentioned, as you can see here, beware of predatory journals. Since it relies on the data in PubMed, there could be certain predatory journals in the list. So you have to be very careful. So while talking about choosing the right scientific journal, it becomes very important to address the journals which have to be avoided because of the too many predators being out there. So this is just to give you an idea that our country is one of the our country has the highest number of publications in predatory journals, so which is very sad. Okay, so we should avoid predatory journals because most, not only young researchers, even senior professors I know had fallen into such predatory journals and have wasted their several years of work into publishing in such predatory journals, which is as good as just going down the drain. So you can always check Jeffrey Bale's list. You can see that whenever the scope of journal is too wide, it could be a predatory journal. Usually they promise rapid publication because there is no peer review and the journal would not be well indexed. And usually you would get some attractive email solicitations. So I'm sure most of you would find such emails in your spam and bulk folders. So be very careful of avoiding predatory journals. And when you follow all these, use all these tools, and getting a paper accepted is not that tough at all. And with this, I end my talk. Thank you.